Well, this is weird. Hello, everybody. This is your president, okay? And we're coming to you sort of from the future, okay? You didn't know I could do that, but that's Sleepy Joe. Certainly can't do it. He probably won't be here in the future, but thank you for joining me tonight because we're going to set the record straight very powerfully and very straight, okay? Because Mike Pence isn't here. But I'm here tonight to talk to you from the correctional facility. It's not a prison. It's called a correctional facility because it's a facility where we do corrections, even though I'm pretty much never need corrections. And it's called Sing Sing. It's called Sing Sing. And there's not a lot of singing going on, to be honest. It's sort of disappointing. And there are a lot of African Americans here, so I thought at least some of them would be doing, very sort of nice singing. Okay, but they're not. There's like no singing. In fact, everybody's sort of kind of sad, to be honest. And I'm here, and as you can imagine, I'm sort of a very powerful political prisoner, okay, because I did nothing wrong. And I gotta say, I like the fact that they gave me sort of an executive suite, as you would imagine, at Sing Sing, so things are going very well, okay, we're very positive. We have great appeals going on, but I want to catch you up on what's been going on, what you've missed, okay, since you last saw me in 2021 with the second impeachment hoax. Ivanka, my beautiful, sexy, voluptuous daughter, okay, and I say that as a father, not in any sort of creepy way. She is now a senator for the great state of Florida. How about that? Isn't that nice? She defeated little Marco Rubio in 2022. We sent the Mountain Dew Army after Rubio, and she defeated him very strongly, so we're very proud. It was kind of a revenge sort of Senate seat, and my great Florida people fought back so strongly for me. And on top of that, what made me even happier, if anything could make me even happier than Ivanka being, the sexiest, she's almost like a porn movie senator. If there was a movie about the Senate, okay, called Impeach My Ass or something, it would star a woman that looks like Ivanka, so it's a beautiful thing. But even better than that, my daughter-in-law, I don't even know if that's really a thing, Lara Trump, okay, she tried to run in North Carolina for the Senate, same year as Ivanka, and you don't do that. I actually endorsed someone else in the race, and her husband, Eric, was very upset. He was saying, sir, he calls me sir. He said, sir, why are you doing this? Why don't you endorse my wife? And I said, she's trying to be the new Ivanka. And if there's one thing, I'll cheat on a wife. I'll cheat on a girlfriend. I'll cheat on a test. But I will never cheat on Ivanka. And when and a daughter-in-law, is that even really a thing? I don't even like Eric. And you want me to like this sort of Ann Coulter-looking woman that he married? Nah, I don't think so. So I didn't endorse her, and she lost. And that sort of let Ivanka know that she is the one queen in the Trump kingdom. So we're very happy about that. And also, in 2021, later in 2021, I got divorced from melatonin, okay? She was 51, and, she never really bothered to learn the language very strongly. And, I had my divorce lawyer. I was very fair. With sort of making sure she got some money. But I had one rule, and I told my divorce lawyer, this is the one rule, okay? I'm not violating this for anything. She has to take custody of her son, Brandon. She has to. I'm not, and I said, this is the one thing I will not bend on. She can have some money. She can keep the Trump name, but she must have full custody of Barton. And we worked that out, and, now that's the situation. So I'm single and ready to mingle. Okay, so, but, not here, not in Sing Sing, not the place. And the other update you probably want is one that I particularly like. The very tough Cuomo brothers. Remember the Cuomo brothers during COVID? Everybody was saying, oh, there's Andrew Cuomo is so good. Well, guess who got impeached by the New York State Legislature? That's right, Andrew Cuomo. And then the funniest part of the whole thing is that then some of my strong supporters started taunting his brother, you know, the bodybuilder, the dumb bodybuilder from the news, Chris. And Chris attacked some of my supporters, beat them up, and now he's in Sing Sing with me on a a less exclusive, more poor level. But Chris Cuomo is in Sing Sing, and his brother, the one thing they couldn't do to me, get him out of office. They got Chris Cuomo out of office because he was so bad with COVID. Okay, the guy was killing more nursing home residents than, you know, stale apple pie. Okay, the guy was a total menace, and it's good that he's gone. But here's the thing, folks. It's 2024 now, and I'm still in Sing Sing, okay? You know, for all sorts of fake crimes, sexual assault, inciting riots, tax fraud. I wasn't even paying attention at all the trials, but, you know, they were all fake, they were all lies. And, but I'm still on the ballot in 2024. I'm running again. I'm going to be president in 2024, whether I'm in here or not, so you can look forward to that. But the reason I'm doing this, you know, I never wanted to do a one-man show. They were like, sir, you have to do a one-man show. You know, my great attorney, Sidney Powell, she came to the prison and she said, sir, you know, QAnon, who's very big now that Marjorie Taylor Greene is the governor of Georgia, they say, you know, QAnon became even bigger, and they have a streaming platform. It's called Pizza Gateway. You can get it, you can download it on all the apps and the smart TVs. And she said, Pizza Gateway wants to give you a one-man show. And I said, why would I want to do a one-man show? Okay? Is my name Barbiglia Leguizamo? I don't think so. Okay, I don't do one-man shows are for people who don't have great talent and have to just talk for a while. And then Sidney Powell, my great attorney, told me the amount of money that QAnon's Pizza Gateway platform was going to pay me. And I said, that's a lot of money, and I know great deals, so I agreed. Now, Sidney Powell, there is always that 10% chance that she's totally making it up, okay? We never know if she's quite on her meds and if, you know, who's talking to her about what. But it sounded like too good a deal to pass up, and I said, okay, we'll do it. We'll do the strong one-man show from Sing Sing, because remember Johnny Cash? Okay, they used to call they said Johnny Cash was the man in black, and I didn't watch it because I was like, I don't need to see black men. And I remember Vice President Mike Pence going, where's Johnny Cash? Where's the black man? And I said, no, Mike, no, that's not what we're talking about. But they explained to me that he was a white man who wore black clothing, and I said, okay, well, that's different. They should call him the white in black clothing. It's a lot less scary. But he did a show in a prison. And it was a lot worse than this show. And you know it, and I know it. So we're doing it. We're doing a one-man show. And I got to tell you, I don't know how many of my supporters have been to prison, okay? How many people watching this great show have been to prison? Prison is not fun, okay? It's, honestly, being in prison, it's like, I'm trying to think of the right metaphor. It's like a prison, okay? It's like being in a prison, okay? That's the best metaphor I can come up with. You know, first of all, I have my own soaps. They let me bring these in. These are the great Trump soaps, still available at the Trump store, which is not doing too well, as you can imagine, you know, because I'm in the air. It'll bounce right back when I get out of here. And they don't let you even have, they're so, it's like in prison, they're totally against freedom and liberty. It's like one of the craziest things. You know, I stand for so much strong liberty and freedom. That was a whole movement. And then all of a sudden you get to Sing Sing and they're like, sir, they do call me sir. They're like, sir, you can't have all these freedoms and liberty. And I go, is this America? And so now I'm moving very strongly for criminal justice reform. Not just the reform where Kim Kardashian comes to your office and shows your tits and you let 3 blacks out of prison. We need much bigger prison reform, okay? So they don't even let me keep a cell phone. Me without a cell phone, okay? Which is okay, because obviously Twitter banned me a while ago, but there's other apps. But we came up with the next best thing for prison. Whenever I want to yell something like a tweet, I have my prison Twitter pillow. It's a My Pillow, by the way. Mike Lindell, very strong Mike Lindell. He sent it to me. It was nice. full of contraband, by the way, don't tell anybody. It had a lot of weapons and a lot of treats. Okay, so don't mess with me. As you can see, I now have 2 tear tattoos. One is for the 500,000 dead from COVID, and the other is from a guy who wouldn't stop staring at me in the shower, so I had to, teach him a lesson. But I have a Twitter pillow, okay? So, I can take my cell phone, but I get this nice My Pillow, and anytime I have a thought, like an all caps thought, I just sit there and I go, I hate the Mexicans in cell block D. And then I feel like I've sent a very powerful prison tweet. So thank you, Twitter pillow. Very strong pillow. Not good for sleeping though, horrible for sleeping. Mike Lindell couldn't make a pillow to save his life. And, people that keep asking what are you in for, and like I said, a whole bunch of fake charges, so many fake charges. Oh, you sexually assaulted that person, you didn't pay your taxes, you incited a riot. I'm in here because I'm great. You know it, and I know it. I'm in this, to be honest, I've made like I said, they gave me the great suite, but I'm in here because I was too great, okay? My whole term, I had 1 term and I changed America. Obama had 2 terms, FDR had like 19 terms from a wheelchair, and none of them did as much as I did in 1 term, okay? And, I dominated business, I then dominated politics, and now I'm dominating prison. I'm now sort of a leader in the prison, if you can imagine that. So it's a beautiful thing to be this sort of strong wherever I go. I'm even making prison great again, so we like that very strongly. But as soon as I got here, I remember the first day I arrived, shortly after one of these fake trials, I gave a very powerful speech. I basically said, how well I did with the country for my 4 years? I'm going to do that with the prison. So I started. I got to the prison, and when they were all taking our numbers, they do that thing where they say, so your number, sir. They still call me sir, so I like that. But I gave a speech, and I talked about the carnage, the American prison carnage, okay? And it was a beautiful speech, and it got a lot of the prisoners riled up. Now, if you're asking, did I start a prison riot in the prison? I would say no. I didn't start a prison riot. I spoke of how we should have more freedom and how there's a lot of bad things going on in prison and they don't respect us. And so maybe there might have been some guard deaths, is what I'm saying. There might have been, but that wasn't my fault. But my speech was great when I got here. And it's because of the lessons that I learned from the great Fred Trump, my father, okay? Fred Trump was about strength, and he was about toughness, and he wasn't about sympathy, okay? And contrast that with the not great Fred Trump, which was my older brother who died fairly young, and that's what we called him in our family. I always wondered why he was so depressed. And as I think about it, maybe it's because every time he woke up, we said, hello, not great Fred Trump. You're not our father. You just have his name. And it sort of made him upset, and he drank. And, that's the end of that story. I was actually at the movie when he passed away. I forget what movie it was, but I think it must have been a good one if I wasn't with my brother. But the point is, he died for a cause. And that cause was to show me that I shouldn't be weak, that I had to be tough. So I was ready for everything, for business, for great politics, and for prison. I've been made for all these things. So it's very, we're very ready. We are sort of dominating the prison right now. We're kind of, I don't want to spoil it, but let's just say I'm in sort of a leadership position now after a few years. And what also impressed, because a lot of people said, Mr. President, sir, if you go to prison, your ratings with African Americans wasn't so great outside of prison. Do you think you're going to do well inside of prison? And I gotta say, I told all the African Americans that I was related to Marion Barry. Now, that's not a lie, that's actually a true story. Marion Barry is a former crack-smoking African American civil rights person who was the mayor of Washington, D.C., and African Americans sort of like him. My sister, when she got married to somebody with the last name Barry, okay, which I don't know why she took the name. The name Trump is so much better than Barry, but she took it. She was sort of being traditional and weak. And that made her name Mary Ann Barry. And if you say it in like a quick way, who knows the difference? So now the African Americans were all like, hey, that's the guy who's related to Marion Barry. And I go, yes, I am. So you're welcome. And, and then I got these Newports and I say, have some Newports from the relative of Marion Barry. And it's a nice thing. We like it. Now, I will say this, that I don't know, it's everybody thought Charlottesville was also a bad. Remember Charlottesville? This happened early in my term and they made a big deal of very fine people on both sides. And some of my people warned me. They said, when you get to prison, that might come back to haunt you. And as usual, they were wrong. They were so wrong. It didn't come back to haunt me. I made a lot of friends on my first day in prison. I kept the African Americans away by telling them I was related to Mary Ann Barry. And you wouldn't believe how many nice, strong, white, bald gentlemen, and they were gentlemen. They were sort of a classy group. They were a classy group of people. How many of them were such strong fans of mine right away? And they were like, thank you so much, sir. You notice how everybody calls me sir, even in prison? And they said, thank you so much, sir, for saying we were very fine people on both sides. And I said, well, it's true. You know, if you want to take down statues of great people, and by the way, the PC left, I don't know if you know this, you know, in a small town in Mississippi, they recently built a statue to me. It's true, out of solid gold. The city is 98% in poverty, and all their schools are failing, but they took every last dollar they had and built a 35-foot gold statue to their president, Donald Trump. Okay, so there's great respect and, you know, great intelligence out there. So I look forward to visiting Trump, Mississippi, as soon as I get out of here. We're going to make it our first campaign stop, okay? But I will tell you this, the bald gentlemen that were white were very happy with me, and they immediately offered me great protection. They offered, like, so I had made the African Americans were fans of mine, and now I had like every white guy in prison was a very strong fan of mine. So there's not, everybody was like, you're going to be in danger, sir. No danger, total safety. And then there was the issue with the Latinos. That's where we started to have a problem, okay? Because the Mexican gangs, not big fans of mine because I talked strongly and honestly about Mexico. And even some of the Puerto Rican people in the prison were not fans of mine because, and I didn't understand why. I said, when you guys had, you know, in Puerto Rico, which is sort of the most American part of Mexico, when you were having a hurricane problem, I took the paper towels and I shot them. And maybe they didn't like that. Maybe if I had done it like a baseball player, because they're more into baseball than they are basketball, maybe it was a little culturally insensitive. Like if I had taken a wiffle ball bat and hit the paper towels at them, you know, or like rolled the paper towels into baseballs and thrown them, they might have found that more appropriate, culturally appropriate. But I looked at some of these Latinos and I said, okay, Mexicans, you're in prison. What are you talking? Of course, you're literally in prison. What are you in prison for? And this one guy said, I'm in prison for dealing drugs, Holmes. And I said, well, that's what I call, excuse me, the left said to me, oh, you're calling Mexicans rapists and drug dealers. And then I meet this Mexican in prison and I say, what did you do? And he said, I dealt drugs, sir. And I said, and he called me sir. And I looked at him and I said, well, then what's the problem? I'm not judging, but I was right. You're a drug dealing Mexican. And he said, sir, you're right. And he apologized and he went away. So that's how I made friends with the Mexicans in here. The Puerto Ricans are still not so happy with me, but at least I've got them outnumbered because I've got the, they're not called white power, they're called powerful whites. I call them powerful whites, the sort of white prisoners, the African Americans and the Mexicans. So the Puerto Ricans don't like me, but I think 3 out of 4 groups is pretty strong, and I think you would agree. So right now I'm, as they said before I got locked up, living my best life. I wouldn't say my best life, but I'd say it's a pretty good life so far. So just one thing, I had a thought about the Puerto Rican people for a second. The only thing that's good from your people is J-Lo. Thank you, Twitter pillow. Like I said, it's, whenever I got the urge to do a strong caps lock tweet, that's what I do. And, the other way, and I'll tell you how I went over the Puerto Ricans, okay? And, by the way, Nazi Tony, could you clap for me, please? You can clap, thank you. Okay, that's enough, okay, we love that. I actually, I put a little extra money in the commissary of my next door neighbor, Nazi Tony, and it's just a nickname. It doesn't mean he's like a bad guy. He's just sort of, everybody's got a nickname, right? It doesn't mean you're a bad person. And so I put a little extra money in his commissary, and then when I'm giving a talk, he sometimes claps to make it feel like a strong rally. And nobody had better rallies than me. You should see me in the cafeteria when I'm talking to these prisoners. It's like, when I get out of here, because they know that when I get reelected president, I'm going to do incredible prison reform. I'm going to say, everyone who is in prison with me, you're free, you can vote for me. And then, excuse me, you thought the guys at the Capitol were tough. Wait till I show up with 500 strong from Sing Sing, if they ever steal an election from me again. Then we're going to see some real problems. But to make friends with the Puerto Rican people, who are sort of the holdouts, they weren't my fans when I got here, and that's okay. And I said, I'm a very strong negotiator. I'll play tough. I'll be tougher than any of them. But I'll give them a chance. We don't want war. We don't want nasty war, okay? But I'm prepared, I'm prepared for war. That's why I brought my Trump soaps to prison, okay? Because I know how some of these prisoners like to attack. So if you've got your own soap, and if it's strong Trump soap, they can't get you. But I thought, I know what I can do. It's called 2 birds with 1 stone, okay? Or as I like to call it, 2 breasts with 1 stone. Because I thought, how can I get the Puerto Ricans to be my friends in prison? And I realized I have a stash. I brought with me from the outside a photo album of Meghan McCain, who is the very busty blonde daughter of the worst senator in the history of our country, John McCain, who right now, let's just say, he's not in heaven with the great Fred Trump. That I will tell you. But I brought all these photos of Meghan McCain, and I thought, I know what I'll do. I will start to ask the Puerto Ricans if they would like to see some beautiful pictures of a busty blonde woman. And they all said, yes. And I said, well, then here they are. And I thought, I'll never forgive John McCain for trying to ruin my presidency, okay? Never. But I thought, what a great way to honor him than by having a bunch of Puerto Rican criminals at Sing Sing pleasuring themselves on photos of his daughter. Okay, it's just everybody wins. John McCain gets disrespected again, okay? His daughter gets the attention that she's craving because I respect her. I respect her for her chest, okay? It's something that we have to acknowledge as a very respectable thing. But she wants attention. You see her on The View. She's always saying nasty things just so people will make her go viral. Well, let me tell you something. She definitely went viral in Sing Sing because, let me put it this way. I did not ask for the pictures back, okay? So that's how, and now the Puerto Ricans are like, so pro-Trump. You wouldn't believe it. So I've won over every group basically in the prison. And then, that gets me thinking. When I think of criminals masturbating to the photos of beautiful blonde daughters of great, people or not so great people, it makes me think of my daughter Ivanka. you know, and that's the toughest part. If I was going to tell you that there's a tough part to being in Sing Sing, I would say it's knowing that Ivanka is in Washington, D.C. doing great Senate work, hopefully not wearing a bra like she did at the UN, you know, turn the temperature down and the turkeys are done. And I say that as a father, not as like a, you know, some people might say that as a creepy way, not me, totally as a strong father. But I will say this, I do miss her. I do miss her. And, you know, sometimes I think about her. And you know, they say now that I'm divorced, you know, it's, you can't have the conjugal visits. You know, that's supposed to be with a wife. And I said, can we make an exception and have a strong father-daughter conjugal visit? And not in a creepy way. Not in a creepy way. It's just a little more privacy. You get to use the trailer out back, and they provide you with all sorts of, you know, nice things for you to have a more comfortable rendezvous with your loved one. Okay? And they said no, and I said, I can't believe that. So I'll remember these prison guards who said I couldn't have a strong father-daughter, non-creepy conjugal visit with Ivanka. And I asked her, she's a senator, and I said, can you pull some strings? And she said, oh, Daddy, and she laughed it off. And I think, you know, I think she thought I was kidding, but I wasn't. So now I'm just trying to get her to get divorced from Jared Kushner. Okay, I need something to look forward to. But you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised who's visited me in prison. Ivanka's visited me a couple of times, of course. Don Jr. came here once, but he said he couldn't come here again because he had too much coke in his system, and if the dogs started sniffing him, he'd be like in here with me. And if there's one thing I can think of worse than being in Sing Sing, it's being locked up in Sing Sing with Don Jr. Okay? No, just, you know, I'll have to do one of those Shawshank things. I'll dig my way out of here if they show up with that weak-chinned bitch. But the point is, the person who's visited me the most and has taught me a lot about Christian forgiveness, and, you know, as a strong Christian, I haven't been to the prison chapel since I've been here, but, you know, a very strong Christian. Mike Pence, because he's doing a podcast now, so he can just take the equipment with him. He doesn't have to stay in one place. He's visited me more than anybody in the world, and he has said to me that he forgives me. And I said, what the hell do I need forgiveness from you? You need my forgiveness. My supporters were just trying to run and say thank you and hello. You know, he was my vice president. Our supporters voted for us. They weren't going to kill him. They were saying hang Mike Pence, but in a like a fun way. You know, Hangman, the game Hangman. It was a total joke that was taken out of context. And he embarrassed my followers, and he asked for my forgiveness. And I thought that was so powerful by our great former vice president, Mike Pence. And he brings me things. He was the one who brought me the Newports for my African-American friends. And all he asks in exchange is that I talk to him about what it's like in the showers in prison. You know, he doesn't ask for money, he doesn't ask for endorsements, he just sits with me, he puts some money in my commissary, he gives me some cigarettes for some of my co-prisoners, and then he just says, Mr. President, can you tell me about the showers? And I tell him, I say, well, yeah, you know, you see all sorts of guys, and sometimes they're soaked up and doing all sorts of radical left activities, if you know what I mean. And then Pence, you know, just smiles, that Christian smile that he has, you know, that one where he just goes. And, you know, I think it's nice. It's nice that Mike and I patched things up, okay, because he was so disappointing in 2021. He was he failed us, he failed our movement, he failed me so strongly, but he's asked for forgiveness. He brings me gifts, and all he wants to know is how I'm doing, and, you know, how the shower is at the prison. Sometimes he asks about the gym as well, but really only as like a prelude to getting to the shower discussion. He's like, so did they bench press a lot of weights, Mr. President? And I go, Oh yeah, the guy was pretty strong. And then, and he goes, did he sweat a lot, sir? And I go, well, yeah, of course, you're in the gym, but it's a sweaty gym. It's the middle of the summer. And he goes, and then what did they do, sir? And then, I tell them they all go to the shower, and I'm showering off. I get my own private sort of, my by the way, strong support, my multicultural people sort of block off my shower as long as I keep putting money in their commissary. So nobody sees me, but believe me, there's no problem down there. But, every so often I'll peek out and check out what's going on in the rest of the shower, and it can get very aggressive. Let's just say Nancy Pelosi would probably enjoy watching, it's a lot of what goes on probably in her district. And Mike Pence, he says, sir, I'm going to leave and I'm going to pray so strongly for those men. I'm going to think about them all the time and I'm going to pray. And I go, okay, well, pray for me too, Mike. Don't just pray for the bodybuilders having sex. Pray for, your great president who has forgiven you. So that's, it's. I know a lot of people were asking, how are you and Mike? And it took a few years, but Mike and I, we're back. We're back to being good. So that's that's one of those happy endings, okay, that Mike Pence always liked at the truck stops. But I think what people don't realize is when they think about my presidency, okay, we had the greatest economy. We had pride, we had patriotism, we had a strong military. We were sending powerful messages to the world that it was America first, that we were putting ourselves first and we were going to be stronger than everybody else. And whether you like me or not, that's what I was doing. That is what I was doing until a real tragedy occurred. And I think everything fell apart. Everything fell apart after this tragedy. In August of 2019, with the greatest economy, a healthy population, strong presidenting, and my daughter with her hard nipples at the UN, everything was going as great as could be. And then all of a sudden, and I get a little upset, these tears are my murder tears. They're not the tears that are, I'm not going to cry real tears because I have to be strong. They don't. As much respect as I have in this prison, you can't let them see weakness. You can't let them see it. Twitter pillow, come here. I am so upset right now. This is very unfair. Thank you, Twitter pillow. August 2019. A longtime friend of mine, one of the great minds, one of the great financial minds, one of the most talented people I've ever known. Great Jeffrey Epstein took his own life in prison, and I'm not going to go out like that. As I was so distraught when that happened to Jeff, because he was definitely not murdered at the behest of Bill Barr. Bill Barr did not change his security parameters and have him murdered. I can guarantee you that. It was a total, complete suicide. And I thought, how can somebody so talented and such a great friend do that? People ask me about my friends sometimes, and I say to them, Jeffrey Epstein was one of the best. You see us partying, we spent time together, you know what they used to call Jeffrey Epstein and I? They used to call us Butch and the Sundance Kid Molester. That was what they called us. We were like this unstoppable tag team. And, he was just such a bright light in the world, okay? Introduced me to so many nice people. We would have parties, and he cared so much about education, so much about education. He wasn't just in the, he taught at a private school in Manhattan. But then he would have parties and he would invite, because he had great wealth, he would invite, 7th and 8th grade teachers over to show appreciation for what, how they were teaching our young people. I think they were 7th or 8th grade teachers. They were that 7th or 8th graders or 7th and 8th grade teachers, and I assumed they were teachers, we can't be sure, but they were teachers. They were just teachers who enjoyed Capri Sun, and cartoons. Like any, Saved by the Bell. Anybody can watch Saved by the Bell. It's for all ages, right? You can be a teacher. Maybe the teachers wanted to see what the kids were into. The point is, it was a man who cared. It was a man with talent. And once he took his own life, it totally changed me. And I think it changed the world. I think when a bright, beautiful light like Jeffrey Epstein fades away, the whole world goes to hell. And I think that's what you saw, because that's when COVID showed up. That's when the impeachment hoax, the Ukraine impeachment hoax. So the whole world, and it was like, Mike Pence once read to me something from the Bible, and I didn't pay attention to most of it. But he mentioned Jesus, and I wanted to listen, because I was like, well, everybody's talking about Jesus. I don't know if he's as great as Trump, but I wanted to hear it. It was called being a good Christian. So I listened, and when Jesus died, because he didn't fight like me. When he died, it was like there was a big, like lightning and thunder, and the earth split or something like that. And I was like, well, when I die, that's at least going to happen for me, right? If not more. And I thought when Jeffrey Epstein died, it was almost like an even greater disruption to the planet than when Jesus died. This is what happens when this happens to our great people. And then we had COVID show up. And like I said, the impeachment hoax. Because I had a perfect call with Ukraine, okay? All my Russian gangster friends in Sing Sing, they totally agree. They were like, they don't even like Ukraine. They want to nuke Ukraine. So they call it Nukraine, because them and Putin, they want to get rid of it. Keep all the hot women and get rid of the rest of the country. So I had a perfect phone call with Ukraine, and then COVID hits. And you saw what happened. It was a disgrace. It was a total disgrace. First of all, the Italians ganged up on me. First it was Cuomo, and then it was Fauci. Little Fauci, snack-sized Dr. Fauci. And, that was the one group that just, and that's, by the way, in Sing Sing, the mobsters are the only group that don't like me, because they're always talking like, why you gotta disrespect Fauci? And I go, get the hell out of my face, Vinny. And even if their names aren't Vinny, okay, they don't like that. They don't like it when you just assume their names are Vinny. And right now I have such a strong coalition of blacks, of Puerto Ricans, of Mexicans, and of white powers, that if the Italians don't like me, they can keep cutting the garlic in their room or whatever the hell they did in Goodfellas. But it was tough what happened with COVID. What happened with COVID was, I would say it wasn't my fault. I think we know that. We call it the flu-jitsu, and it was totally China's fault. And people always said to me, why don't you show more sympathy, sir? Why don't you show more sympathy for those who lost? And I go, I showed great sympathy. I showed more sympathy than you, more sympathy than anybody, okay? And I had loss. I had very strong loss during COVID. It hit me personally. Obviously, I got it, but I kicked the crap out of it. It took me 2 days to be done with COVID, and I had to be more sympathetic, because in my head it was like, what's everybody talking about? COVID's so strong. COVID. I kicked the crap. COVID was begging me to stop by the time I was done with it. And I said, not yet, COVID. But I lost people. I remember my great friend, Harry Kane, the black with the pizza shops who ran for president. Harry Kane, what's that? Herman Cain. Thank you, Nazi Tom. Herman Cain was a great friend and a great supporter. And nobody could have predicted that he would die, and we were very sad when it happened. He got COVID. Did anybody even know that going without a mask into an indoor arena full of people with no masks was dangerous? Nobody knew that. They just came up with that like 2 weeks ago. So nobody knew. But we felt very sad for him, and we were so sad, we didn't even mention his name once at any Republican convention things. That's how sad. It would have made us too upset. That's why we totally ignored his existence once he died. But worse than that was that my brother, Richard Trump, passed away from We never said what it was, but I'm telling you exclusively here for my great one-man show people that it was COVID that killed Raoul Trump, my great brother. Oh, Robert Trump? Robert Trump, him as well. Okay, well, we also lost a Robert Trump who apparently was related to me as well. Oh, that's the same. You know, it's the first time we're doing the show, so we're getting some, you know, off-stage tips, you know, from, you know, his name was okay, my brother's name was Robert. Okay, but you know that, you know, sometimes they call it Dick, sometimes they call you Richard, sometimes they call you Robert. You know, it's the same name basically. So yes, my brother, Raphael Trump, passed away from COVID, and so that hit me very strongly and very, you know, I was golfing at the time, because that's what he would have wanted me to do, you know. Ryan Trump always said to me, sir, he called me sir, he would always say, sir, be happy, do what you love. And, you know, I would just say, you know, Rex, thank you. Thank you so much for letting me live my life and being such a positive influence. So I had more loss than most people, okay? But you have to do the job. It's called a job. It's called president, okay? And you have to fight. You have to fight like hell. So then we get, fast forward, we're in prison, okay? Because we had the second impeachment hoax, and then everybody, oh, his supporters rushed the Capitol. He rushed the Capitol, and then, you know, that's when I knew this country was done. When you can't be a freedom-loving people running against elderly politicians and threatening to kill them, do we even have a country? Do we even have a country at that point? Okay? It's, like I said, I feel more free in Sing Sing than I did out there. That's you know, there's nobody to take your social media pillow away in prison, okay? Because Sing Sing is more about freedom than the real world. Thank you, Twitter pillow. Why won't they let me have my real Twitter back? Thank you, Twitter pillow. Very strong pillow. And so they took away my social media, they took away my presidency, and then they threw me in jail for a bunch of made-up crimes. Like, is sexual assault even a real crime? Like, I don't even know what that is. I paid taxes, I paid a lot of taxes, and then sometimes I didn't, okay? But they're saying that's a crime. But then I got to prison, and, you know, it got tough. It got very tough. And, you know, I decided I'm not going to let the Dems, the prison warden, the media, the fake news, I'm not going to let them stop me from living out my dreams and to making our country better. I'm not going to let them do it. So that's when I announced that I was running again for president. Running again for president in 2022. And the great thing is, even while I've been locked up here, every red state, every Trump state has me on the ballot. And I've won a few states. I might actually get the nomination from prison. You know, not a lot of people know this, where I got my inspiration. When Hussein Obama was running as, you know, for his second term as Kenyan president, in West Virginia, okay, one of our great red states, he was primaried by a guy in prison, a guy who was actually in prison. In the Democratic primary, got 40%. Those weren't even the Republicans, that was the Democrats. That's how great West Virginia is for people like me. They almost primaried out their presidential choice with a white guy in prison. And I said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run again. And, you know, it's going well so far. But before then, I'm actually running for president of Sing Sing's prison population, you know, because you can hold both titles at the same time. They don't cancel each other out. And I actually ran a year ago. You know, I had mentioned a prison riot before. I ran a year ago for Sing Sing prison president, and they gave it to this old-timer They did. He was here for like 40 years. I don't know. He murdered somebody when he was like 19, but then he became a model, I'm a model prisoner. I do community service. I've asked for forgiveness from Jesus. Like one of these real losers in prison, very into prayer and into like getting an education. And all of a sudden, they rigged it. Even though I had the whites, the white powers, the African Americans, I had them all. And yet they told me that Slashing John Biden, that's his name, Slashing John. They said, no, sir, he won. He won, and in fact, he got most of the votes because so many people know him for so many years. And I said, Slashing John, you're telling me that Donald J. Trump lost a presidential race to a guy named Slashing John? He literally has a crime in his name. And I said, this is totally fake. So then I simply started a rumor in the prison, which was, we had heard some things. Sidney Powell actually told me she heard this on OAN during one of our lawyer-client meetings. I said that I had heard that supporters of Slashing John, this is what we heard. We didn't have all the intel, but we had heard. I trust Sidney Powell, that Slashing John had actually had sex with White Power Willie, who's sort of the leader of the White Power gang, had sex with his boy toy. Okay, you don't need to know all the ins and outs of prison. Mike Pence likes to know, and that started a sort of very violent, aggressive war. Several guards were maimed. I think at least might have been 45 prisoners died. So not too many. It was just. It was basically like another Attica, which was no big deal, okay? And all of a sudden, they took away my Twitter pillow. Now I don't, and they just, by the way, took it away now. And so they took away my Twitter pillow. They put me in a solitary cell, which was not sort of very exclusive. And they said, you got to go on trial for inciting a prison riot. And I said, what the hell is this? This is like deja vu, which I hate because that's French and very weak. And so now I'm running for president, okay? They found me not guilty. They found me not guilty. They did the trial and they said not guilty. And it was great. I simply had some of my associates go have conversations with the families of the juries and let them know that if Donald J. Trump were not acquitted of this inciting a prison riot, their families might be hanging out with the great Jeffrey Epstein. That's all. And that's a compliment, by the way. You know how I think of Jeffrey Epstein. So they acquitted me of inciting the prison riot. And now I just have a few days left in my prison sentence. But I want to wait to see if I win this year's prison president competition. And then when I do, I will hand it over to be fair, I will hand it over to an African American just to show that I'm, sort of very fair and the least racist person in the prison, which, by the way, is actually not that hard, In the real world, I sort of used hyperbole. In prison, I actually might be the least racist person, so that's actually kind of a true statement. But I'm set to be released soon, and I'm going to hopefully win the 2024 nomination, and we can start this all over again. So thank you for being with me for this very powerful one-man show, okay? Mike Birbiglia, John Leguizamo, they can't do shows like this. They can't do shows. They never did a show in a prison. So thank you for joining your president, and we'll see what happens.